Cool. So, thank you everyone for joining. This is the first of our new set of monthly product live streams that we're going to start doing. The goal here is to really give you guys a much deeper demo of the updates that we're making to Causal every week, how to use them in your workflows in Causal, and just explain a little bit about the thinking behind these updates beyond just the sort of brief sort of text updates that we have in the change log and so on. We also want this to be kind of a two-way forum. So we'd love to get your questions, feedback as you're watching these live streams, or if you're watching the recording, then you can reply to us by email or reach out on the live chat as well. So for today, there's three big new feature sets that we're talking about. The first is a bunch of updates surrounding categories, and I'll get into that in a sec. The second is around how you can use text in dashboards. We've kind of overhauled that. And the third is a kind of brand new piece of functionality that is called the Salesforce wizard that'll unlock kind of a whole new use case for Causal. And so let's dive into things and start off with the various categories updates that we've been working on. So I'm going to share my screen. If you're not sure what a category is in Causal, essentially it lets you work with lists of items. It might be a list of employees. For a headcount model, it might be a list of products. In a revenue model, it might be a list of enterprise sales leads if you're building that kind of revenue forecast. And so this example is of a headcount model. As you'll know, we have the different categories used in this model down here at the bottom. And so we've got this list of employees. Each employee has a different role. They're in a different location. We've set some different values for them, start date, salary, and so on. And we've changed a bunch of things in here. So one of the big changes is that now you can see the mappings in the opposite direction as well as the kind of outgoing direction. And so in this case, each employee has a sort of outgoing mapping to a role. So each employee is assigned to a role. But if you're looking at the roles, you can now see the kind of incoming mappings as well, where we can see for each role which employees have that role. And so some of these have one. It looks like backend engineer has 4 different employees assigned to it. And so you can kind of see this sort of incoming mappings. And so hopefully there's a lot less clicking around just to get a sense of, okay, what's connected to what, what's feeding through and so on. Another update is that you can now see variables that inherit the category rather than just variables that have the category explicitly applied. And so, the start date, the salary, the end date, these would have this category explicitly applied, but a lot of the downstream calculations like the salary, the bonus, and so on, these will be done using formulas that just inherit that category. And so now you can see all of these variables in here as well. And you can see variables that change over time in the form of a sparkline. If you don't like those and it gets too cluttered, you can click on this menu and show or hide those extra columns as you see fit. I will just leave them hidden for now. The next update is that in this table, you can actually now write formulas. And so if over here we wanted to set a formula for this, we could do some arithmetic. We could reference previous values, or reference other variables, and so on. And so this is kind of a much richer interface for actually setting some of those values related to categories. Probably the biggest change that we've made is the ability to show or hide indirect category mappings. Now, what do I mean by that? So if you look at this table here, each employee has a different role and a different location. If we go on over to the roles, we'll see that each role has a department. And so you might be interested in seeing, hey, what department is this employee in? And historically, what you'd have to do is you'd have to look at this table, see that, okay, this employee is an events manager. You'd go over to the roles, you'd find events manager, and then you'd be able to see that they are in marketing. And so there's a lot of clicking around, a lot of scrolling. Now, if we look at this header where it says role, we can click this button to expand out the indirect mappings related to the role. And so directly we can see that each person is in, this person is marketing, this person is engineering. We're not having to click around, we're not having to scroll through. And so whatever kind of linked connections there are related to employee, you can now see those in a single view. And so that just sort of saves a lot of time and makes it a lot easier to work with categories in Causal. Final couple of things is that we also have updated our different kind of UIs for searching and selecting categories. So if you wanted to bring a new category into the model, this is what the UI looks like now. It's kind of this nice hierarchical list where the sort of top level category is shown with the sort of mappings nested underneath. And so it's much easier to scan, much easier to find things, and you can search things as well. And also each category now has its own icon. So in the same way as you can set different icons for models, for example, up here, we can also set an icon for the category, and it just makes it easier for you to scan things, makes it easier for you to sort of make sense of all the different things on the screen, rather than having to read specific bits of text to be able to jump and know where you want to click. And so you can now personalize all these different icons for your categories and get your pages looking really good. Final update on the category side is that categories now have a sort of permanent full page view outside of any specific model. And so categories live in this sort of categories page. You can access it on the sidebar. And all of your categories will appear here. If you click through, you'll be able to see that kind of table view of the category, all of the items. You can add items, remove items, all the mappings. You can add mappings as well. And so this is kind of a centralized place where you can manage all the categories and relationships without having to go directly into a specific model that uses that category. So lots of category updates. It's really a big overhaul of everything to do with the user interfaces working with categories. And so hopefully that's a lot easier to use, easier to understand, and a lot quicker to actually just sort of see everything in a single view. So those are the category updates. If you have any questions, do drop them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. But we'll move on now to the dashboard text visuals. So we've got here a dashboard in Causal. As you know, you can create charts, you can create tables. You can also create free-form text visuals where you can add commentary. We got lots of feedback from users that they really like the charts and tables in Causal, but found that to really help their teams understand the dashboards, storytelling was really key. And of course, that requires being able to write text and words and ideally be able to format that in the right way. And our old text editor was honestly pretty difficult to use. You had to format the text using Markdown, this weird syntax. And so we've completely built a sort of new text editor from the ground up to make it much easier to work with. And we've added some new functionality. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go behind the scenes in this model and check out this text editor here. So probably the biggest change is that you no longer need to write Markdown. This text editor works like Google Docs, Notion, etc., where you can type in rich text. You can say things like our revenue last month was. If you press / you can see all the different variables in your model. Select one of them. It'll bring the value in. You can select the value at different points in time. You can select bits of text. You can format them. You can add hyperlinks and so on. And so it's much easier to work with this. You can add headings, etc. as well. So much easier to work with actually creating the text. You can also mention people in the text. So if you want to draw attention to someone, you can say, okay, I guess I have no people in my organization here, but if you type @ then you'll see kind of a list of all the different people in your organization, and you can reference them as well, and they'll get a notification that you've tagged them in text. So those are a bunch of updates. We've added new functionality around what you can select in terms of the point in time for the values here. You can now select the last actuals date as the sort of value that you want to choose, which will depend on your data source. So that's kind of some of the big updates on text and dashboards. Outside of these free-form text components, you can create this text component here. We are also now letting you create different notes in tables. And so this is a way to add more text commentary and more storytelling and explanations around your tables. And so we've got this budget versus actuals table in here. What a lot of people were asking for is, hey, I'd love to be able to just kind of add some commentary to explain why we had a particular variance in each month, so that if someone's looking at the dashboard, they can get that information immediately. They don't have to come to me and ask, why was this a little bit higher? Why was that a little bit lower? So to add a notes column like this to your tables, you can go into the columns section, click on add item, and you'll find this notes item. That's what we've got here. Once you add that column, you can then kind of go into any of these cells, add some commentary, and it'll work just as you expect. And then anyone looking at this table in your dashboard will be able to see that as well. And so, just lets you add a bit of commentary to each row of a table separately, which is particularly useful for variance analysis, or budget versus actuals, and it's often called. So those are the updates to text and dashboards. We have a brand new freeform text component that you can use, and we have notes columns in tables. As before, any questions on that, just drop them in the chat, and we will answer them at the end. Now, we've saved maybe the best to last. I wouldn't say best, maybe the flashiest to last is our Salesforce wizard, because it's kind of a brand new piece of functionality rather than updates to existing functionality. So, just as a background, what we've started to see a lot is, our customers, our users, wanting to be able to basically bring more data into Causal from different places, particularly the kind of data that's finance adjacent. And that data is typically revenue data. And so we're seeing lots of RevOps teams, revenue operations teams, wanting to know how they're tracking against their targets, wanting to bring in the historical revenue data from the CRM, connect it up to the rest of their financial models, etc. We use Salesforce ourselves. Lots of companies use Salesforce, and doing kind of simple analysis in Salesforce is actually pretty clunky and pretty tricky. And so what we've done is that we have now created a Salesforce wizard in Causal that produces a dashboard out of the box based on your Salesforce data. And the good thing about that is that it has the underlying sort of modeling power of Causal behind it. And so you can kind of go in and customize pretty much anything. Essentially, the way it works, if I show you this screen here, is you can trigger the Salesforce wizard from the right-hand side of the app. I've already got a Salesforce connection, but you can create a new connection. Once you click through, what Causal will do is pull in all of the opportunities from your Salesforce CRM. And so it'll just take a few seconds to do that. If we just give it a second. And once that data is pulled in, what we'll be able to do is decide which extra fields we want to pull in to be able to slice and dice that opportunity level data in different ways. And so by default, Causal will always pull in the opportunity owner, the stage, and the account that it's attached to. You'll be able to see a list of all the other fields you have set up in Salesforce. And so I might want to select an extra field here. I might want to select the opportunity type and maybe the loss reason as well. And so I can select some of these extra fields that I want, and then I'll be able to hit next. Just to save us a little bit of time, I'll just jump right to the final outcome. Once you kind of go through that process, you will end up with a dashboard just like this one. We have kind of a text guide that you can read through, but essentially this is kind of an interactive dashboard based on the data from Salesforce. You'll be able to use all the different filters for those different Salesforce fields. I'll be able to see just new business or just renewals or all of it all together. And we have a bunch of different charts here. I'm not going to read out all of the titles, but it's kind of all the typical sales reporting type charts that you'd expect. We can see, in April we had like a really big spike in new opportunities created. It looks like it's been trending upwards a little bit since then. We'll be able to see a table of all of our different reps, or their activity, and as usual, filtering across all of these different categories, comparing things, aggregating things, and we can see kind of the weighted pipeline forecast based on stage. So we can see all the historical close one opportunities, and we'll see that we have a bunch of stuff in negotiation over the coming months, and obviously closed one as well, broken out by owner, by opportunity type. We can use all these filters, ACV, win rate, and so this is what you end up with out of the box. Obviously, you'd then be able to go in behind the scenes, drill down into opportunities, and actually kind of see a list of all the different opportunities that go into a particular cell in the spreadsheet. You can kind of start customizing the formulas, calculating extra metrics based on that. All of the usual modeling and scenario work that you can do with Causal will now be possible off of the back of the Salesforce data. And so, this kind of dashboard should be really helpful for things like weekly sales meetings, tracking progress each week, each month, each quarter. You can, save target versions and plan versions in Causal, as usual, and then track progress against those. Yeah, this functionality is now live. So if you log into Causal, you should be able to see that on the right-hand side, and you should be able to trigger the Salesforce wizard there. So that's kind of the new functionality on the Salesforce side of things. As always, any questions, please drop them into the chat.